And for that, the important thing that we need to keep in mind is that if we look 20 years back, we didn't know that the world of today will be like this. So we can just have an idea as educational leaders of the world of tomorrow and do our best to prepare young people with the skills, with the abilities for that world. So what are the skills that they need, which we need to deliver to them? And what are the modes of teaching and learning? Seeing it in the context of Pakistan and in the global context, there is no single mode of delivering that. There is no single system of delivering education. And that is where, as my colleague sitting on the right was saying, we have to contextualize the modes for delivering education. We have to contextualize the content for delivering to these young people. And we have to involve these young people who themselves are going to take lead in the world of tomorrow. And innovation in itself doesn't mean just accepting anything which is new. Development doesn't mean moving from here to there. It means adding values, adding new things, which will work for that context, which will work for the needs in that context, and which will be acceptable for those people living in that specific context to establish themselves as useful citizens for the world of today as well as for the world of tomorrow. Educational leadership, I think, is not just leading from the top and not just being heads of institution. It is a role where you bring people together to collaborate, to perform their best, and to achieve their best potential. Because we, particularly as Muslims, as the Talawat earlier said, that God created us with the purpose. When God says that human beings were created as ahsan-e-taqweem. So that ahsan-e-taqweem means, what does bring us to that ahsan-e-taqweem? That is the knowledge, because we were given knowledge. Allam al-insan. Insan, we got as human beings the knowledge, the learning. And that learning context, creating that learning context and delivering that learning context to fit in a world of tomorrow is the role of educational leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. Mr. Tom White will make his opening statement on early years development.
Good morning. A few minutes ago, Mrs. Kasuri said something very profound. She said, the most important thing we can give our students is the ability to learn. And I think that's extremely important, beginning with the early years. I've been a classroom teacher now for 26 years, and I've also, on the side, have been extremely interested in brain-based learning with the younger children. And being in the classroom has allowed me to see the implications of brain-based learning in the classroom directly every day. Brain-based learning takes advantage of new techniques of imaging, which have told us which parts of the brain are activated during learning and which parts of the brain are activated in the storing and retrieval of long-term memory. Okay? And it's also told us a lot about how emotion plays a role in education. What that implies for us as educators is that the way to go, the instructional theory to adapt, I believe, is what's called constructivism, building on the work of Piaget, Dianis, Vygotsky, and Brunner, okay, where students construct their knowledge, where they lay down their paths of meaning over existing schemata. Teachers in the constructivist approach view their job as the guide, the facilitator, and the person who consolidates the learning. What that implies specifically is that we should focus as teachers on things such as projects, role play, using methods of elaborate rehearsal as opposed to rote rehearsal, and above all, making learning meaningful for our students. It also implies, in regards to the systemic approach, is that we should focus our curriculum on depth as opposed to breadth. We should be smart about what we teach, and above all, teach it well, beginning in the early years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. I should also mention quickly that Mr. Thomas White is currently doing a workshop for Beaconhouse on brain-based learning, and is also one of, will be doing a workshop at the conference as well, as are the other panelists. Finally, I'll request Dr. Pervez Hoodbhoy to say a few words.
Thank you, Kasim. It's hard to make a summary of summaries, but the preceding speakers, I think, have put before us very ably modern educational concepts. We hear a refrain. Several words get repeated, like flexibility, inquiry, discovery model, new paradigm. And I'm really very excited by what we will learn in the way of new educational technologies that have come. From Dr. Shah, we learned that educational leadership is that which gets the best out of people, out of teachers, and creates the rapport between teachers and students, which is absolutely essential for the learning process. I think that we will learn a lot from our visitors. Some of them are coming to Pakistan for the first time, and surely they will bring much significant expertise. Yet it's important to bear in mind that Pakistan's educational environment is not quite that of the West. In fact, it's very different. Relationships are significantly different and significantly more authoritarian than they are in Europe or the United States. Whether it's state over citizen, employees over employees, employers over employees, or men over women, or teachers over students, that relationship is a much more fixed and a much more authoritarian one over here. Now, having shuttled between the United States and Pakistan for pretty much 40 years, both as a student and then as a professor in various universities in the United States, I've been able to see the difference between our students over here and their students over there. Certainly in terms of intrinsic capabilities, there is no difference because we have the same genetic material, and yet somehow they manage to outperform us uniformly, or at least significantly. And the question is why? I am driven to the conclusion that the difference comes primarily because teacher authoritarianism does not allow the rapport which is necessary between student and teacher in the classroom. This is true in universities, in colleges, and in schools across Pakistan. It's especially true in the middle-class schools of this country, and one can ask why this is so. Of course, the roots go back into tradition, into the very nature of knowledge as was conceived in traditional societies, where the epistemology was different. Knowledge was thought of as composed of a corpus of facts, which had to be transferred from the teacher to the student. And therefore, the student had to be a passive receptor. Now, coming back to what Nasreen Kasuri had said earlier on, she said things I thought were profound, that Pakistan needs to move ahead. It needs to aim for excellence. Beaconhouse needs to aim for excellence. And the real question is, how do you do that? So I'm going to propose something which to our people, or to our experts over here, might seem like Pedagogy 101, but it's really important for us. Perhaps, just like doctors have a Hippocratic oath which they must take before they become certified as doctors, so also teachers, and I mean teachers of Beaconhouse in particular, ought to take a Hippocratic oath for teachers. Now, what could that comprise of? Number one, you as a teacher will make every effort to create a thinking mind. And this means that even if a student challenges authority, including your own, you will welcome it. Number two, you will not tell a student that something is true just because your textbook says so. My experience as a teacher in a university has been that a student comes up to me and says, "Sir, but this is right because it's in the textbook." Well, I say, it may be right and it may be wrong, but give me the reason, because unless you know the reason, you have not learned anything.